At the end of the day, it's the LDS church controlling my family and it being a cult and me not wanting to respect a cult anymore. Hi, hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I like to talk about rediscovering yourself in your life in the USA right now, the chaos of being a cat mom, and everything in between. Welcome back to Chaos and Fuckery, and I still don't know how that intro is gonna work. I've also tried to record this episode like 8 times. My thing keeps crashing. Cats like to make my mic move all about. This is chaos and fuckery. These creatures are a lot of chaos. I also exposed them to this thing called the outside a little bit today. Now, cat parents, don't come at me. I literally just opened a window. These cats have been such indoor princesses that they don't even know what it's like to look at the outside via a screen door. So I opened a window today, and you might hear her purring in my mic. I apologize, but this is my chaos. I don't like shutting them out, especially when my husband's traveling, because they get lonely, so they get to cuddle with me and hang out with me. But today's episode has nothing to do with cats. Today's episode is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a while because I never felt comfortable enough to talk about these things prior to starting this journey. And I am seeing more and more online. Maybe it's just because I've been talking about it and consuming content related to it, but I've been seeing a lot of people talk about how going no contact and families breaking up and things like that is a trend and it needs to be stopped. And seemingly to me, the way I see a lot of those comments is people who put in boundaries with their family are ruining the state of the United States or ruining families in the United States because members of their family aren't willing to do the work and actually own up to the bullshit they've put their family through. And as someone who is learning to stand up for myself via my husband encouraging it and learning to say, yeah, no, that's fucked up. I'm not putting up with this anymore. And slowly going minimal to no contact with pretty much all of my family, and as someone who has been no contact with pieces of my family since I was 14 years old, I am here openly to say it's not a trend. When you look at why someone is going no contact, 9 times out of 10, now I know there's exceptions to these things, and some people are legitimately, they need to go do the work, but they make it everybody else that's the problem. And ironically, that is a giant theme in why I'm going no contact with some of my family, is I have family members that don't want to do the work, and they actually genuinely think everybody else is the problem, and that they know everything. But when it comes to someone openly making the decision, especially in a very blood is thicker than water family, there's a reason for it. It's not a trend. And I can guarantee you that person thinks about breaking the no contact every damn day just to have a piece of their family back. But they have to keep that boundary in line, not only especially if they're parents to protect their kids now from the same bullshit that they went through, but also to protect their own mental sanity. I saw this thing over Christmas, an emerging trend over Christmas, where there was a lot of, you can tell your parent was the least favorite kid by the way they treat the grandkids. And I saw a little bit of that in my own family growing up. My mom's favorite nieces and nephews were really obvious. You knew exactly who my mom's nieces and nephews that she would automatically go take out to go do things were. You knew when she came to town that certain kids would get that preferential treatment. And unfortunately, I was a part of that growing up because I had no choice. I was her daughter. And unfortunately, a lot of my mom's favorites were also the kids of the siblings she was getting along with at the time. Not necessarily anything to do with the kid themselves, but the behavior of their parent. Very Abby Lee Miller-like. The treatment of the kid depended on the behavior of the parent. And I, as an adult now, think that's fucking insane. I don't have siblings. I don't have nieces and nephews, but the fact that my mom treated some of my cousins like that and encouraged me to do the same amongst my family, I think has caused a large rift in my family now. But that doesn't change the fact that no one likes to hold anyone accountable. I have issues with people thinking that no contact is a trend because of my own story. And today is going to be more of a rant episode because no contact is a big, big thing to me. It fucked up my 20s. Being in contact with some of my family. I had uncles causing issues in my marriage because I didn't know what they were saying behind my back to my husband and telling him things like I would leave him for an engineer. I had aunts that blew up my social media over context I didn't have because I chose to keep in contact with someone that I didn't know to them had did some awful things. I have grandparents that I cut out at 14 because of the way they treated other pieces of my family as well as tried to force religion or a cult on me. And the reason I've been scared to talk about this is because A, I hadn't started going no contact with other pieces of my family. So talking about the issues I have with the religious cult that both sides of my family have and are currently are a part of, have been in some cases and currently are in others, could basically mean that the minimal contact I'm in with a few will end if they get wind of this episode. And there was a lot of fear behind addressing and not tolerating their religious preferences until I did a lot of research into the cult myself. I've had issues with this cult, and I guess it's turning more from no contact to discussing this cult. And I'm gonna name it. I'm just getting, I'm getting there. Because the cult is a large reason why I'm being, in a way, forced. There are other reasons, for sure, but there is also a large proponent that has forced me into no longer being a part of this family. And I feel like my story's not unique. I feel like a lot of people who go no contact have issues with, in today's day and age, it's probably political beliefs, also driven largely by religion and fundy religions at that. I don't think having issues with your family being a part of a religious cult or just a really obnoxious religion or cult, in the case of MAGA, is a unique situation. And that's why a lot of people have to cut off. But also poor treatment growing up, which is a part of my story as well, when it comes to body shaming and slut shaming and all in the name of their religion. Another reason I've seen a lot of people cut off their families is the way they treat their spouse. And that was my final nail in the coffin for me. The way my family has treated my spouse since he came to be a part of this family has been atrocious. And I couldn't see it until he forced me to take my rose-colored glasses off and see it the way he did. It takes a minute. I wasn't perfect. I should have supported him more than I did in the beginning. I shouldn't have told him that he's crazy, and my family would never do that. I had to see it for myself before I wouldn't say before I believed him, because I believed he was experiencing that, but I also believed he was misreading their actions. Until I really looked at it as if I was not a member of the family and saw how fucked up shit was, which led me to the point I'm at now. The idea that it's a trend to not have a family, and that this society is so self-centered that those of us who are childless, by choice even, are these evil beings that are breaking up families, I think it's obscene. But I want to get into why I think it's obscene, to also serve not only as an episode for this chaos and fuckery podcast, but as a reminder to myself, and if my family ever asks why I left, or why I'm no contact because some come to see the light, as a few have. There are a few that I'm still in contact with that understand and see things exactly the way I see them. And even more so, because the few family members that I am still in regular contact with have more than just themselves to think about. They also have issues with spouses being a part of the conversation. They also have issues with the othering treatment of their kids. Things like that. So, to let y'all into a little bit about me, I guess, let's get at it, of why I'm no contact with my family and why others might be as well, to try and explain to those who think it's some trend, why. My no contact story starts, like I said, at 14 years old. when I discovered that my dad's mother was a huge campaign against my mom's mom. And at this point in my life, even though my mom's mom did not live here in the States, I felt she was more of a part of my life and more central to my life than the one who lived 15 minutes down the road from me. I had always felt not included with my dad's mom. I'd always felt like there was some sort of judgment that I didn't understand. Come to find out as an adult later, that judgment was the religious cult she's a part of. And I'm gonna say what that cult is now, because there is also a weird fascination with this cult, and I'm calling it a cult because it is. I really am not open to hearing opinions on this church. My family, both sides, grew up members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or as more commonly and colloquially known, Mormons. I got asked just simply for having Mormon family how many wives some of my family had. I dealt with Mormon stereotypes I didn't understand just purely because I was adjacent to them. My name is in Mormon church records because my mom did my grandparents a favor when I was an infant. I have never been a member of this church, but goddamn has it run my life. And I'm tired of being acceptant of this church, this cult, and everything it has done to not only ruin my familial structure, but ruin a lot of my family's lives, and they can't even fucking see it. But yeah, that's where my no contact story starts. A church that's so unbelievably controlling, they tell you what fucking underwear to wear. Please tell me how that's fucking normal. It's not. And even when my parents sent me, prior to me going no contact, when my parents sent me to a Baptist church, not Baptist, just Baptist school to further my religion, my dad's mother lost her shit. Because how dare she send me to another fundamental Christian fucking religion? And then I went to a Catholic. Anyways, I spent a lot of time in religions I was never really a part of growing up. And people wonder why I'm agnostic, borderline atheist now. That's why. You know, I think I would rather be, if I was gonna sign myself up to some sort of religion, I would probably be a Wicca. Like, a pagan. Fucking reality. Anyways, my dad's mother sent a disgusting letter to my mom's mom about her influence over my life and her ability to be a grandmother, all in the name of the church. And before people who are I'm probably gonna mention the Mormon church, and this title is clickbait, and people are gonna come running and frolicking because I'm calling it a cult and comments, whatever. If that does happen, here's what I got for you, part 1, and part 2, say that's not the teachings of the church all you want, but that's my experience with multiple members. They will act all high and mighty and perfect and that whole keep sweet thing, and then be razor sharp, backstabbing assholes the minute you turn around. 90% of the LDS members I have interacted with would cut out their own family over religious differences before they helped someone in need. Reality. They are all in it for themselves and the glory of a fucking planet. Anyways, that starts it. But I also find out around the same time that I'm finding about this letter this woman sends. This woman I've always felt uncomfortable with, never really enjoying my presence with her, being forced to do religious things I didn't understand at Christmas Eve parties and Sunday dinners and whatever. I'm finally starting to understand why this woman feels so not family to me at this point in my life. And then I find out that she also sent a letter to her son, my uncle, when he was on his Mormon mission, questioning if he should be on, that if he came home early, that she would disown him. Mind you, Mormon missions are a choice. Just like any other missionary work. It's a choice. And if he didn't feel like he belonged there and that he was serving the mission purpose anymore, he should have come home. But under the threat of being disowned by his family, he chose not to. Or at least for a little while. Your choices are be disowned or run the risk that they're serious. Like, you either have to run the risk or stay and be miserable. Those all what? And that's an important piece of the story because it's also why I am minimal to no contact with one of my mom's siblings as well. That is a very important piece to my overall story. This cult controlled them so much that the shame, I put air quotes around shame, of their missionary, which, mind you, this is the only son that went on a mission, coming home early in the church culture, had her writing letters that she would disown him, which is insane. Finding out all of this at 14, I was finally allowed to make decisions for myself whether I wished to participate in family events. I didn't really spend too much time there to begin with, really. So I slowly started going no contact with her. I think the last time I saw and interacted with her regularly was right before my Sweet 16. She helped me make my dress for that event and helped me with a few other things for my Sweet 16 birthday party. But she did some more vile things towards my high school graduation, and that was my final point, was my high school graduation. When I went off to college and I no longer had to kind of play nice because my dad wasn't even really coming home anymore, I went no contact with her. Until my family, my dad's siblings, decided to bring her, despite my repetitive statements to not bring her. They brought her to my reception. She was not invited, and they brought her anyways. So that's no contact story number one. But they're all interconnected to the LDS church. In my opinion, there are so many things, because even though my parents didn't raise me in the LDS church, they were both raised in the LDS church. And a lot of their morals and belief structure and what is rude, what is disrespectful, that kind of thing was still heavily rooted in that teaching. They left the church, but I don't believe either of my parents really fully deconstructed the church, its teachings, how vile and awful and hypocritical a lot of it was, really at all. I think my mom is just now in her 50s starting to deconstruct some of that. And I know for a fact she suffered with a lot of it, at least until her 30s with that. So by the time she really started to deconstruct, I was gone. I was brought up in non-deconstructed LDS land. And same with my dad. Well, he further deconstructed, because I don't ever think my dad was really in it. To be honest, I think he just did it because he had to. He still had a lot of respect their religion kind of moments until he found out a lot of these things that I found out, like the letters and the vile things she, meaning his mother, would do in the name of the religion. He always thought she was a little kooky, but he didn't realize just how bad things had gotten. And that leads me to my mom's sister. My mom's older sister, I always thought was different. I knew she was a part of the church, but she always seemed different from the other members I had interacted with. She seemed to be more accepting. She seemed to be less judgmental. She seemed to not be a catty high schooler bitch. Except for I was just young, dumb, and stupid. Because the reality is she was exactly that. And I didn't realize what they were all doing to me. She was the ultimate, and I can only imagine what it was like for my cousin growing up in her household, being the only girl when she was adopted by my aunt at 13. Because I got a lot of body and slut shaming from her. I can only imagine what it was like to actually live there. How dare you wear something that's not garment friendly, even though you don't wear garments and you're not a part of the church. Or just don't wear garments, period, because my cousin would get... I've witnessed some of the slut shaming my cousin got living under her roof. The body shaming, specifically. I got slut shamed. My cousins didn't get it. I definitely did, but the body shaming for sure my cousin did get. And I protected a lot of my cousins because I was the sounding board for them. I have everybody's secrets and have for many, many years. And I never got that in return from anybody. I couldn't trust any of them because my aunt got pissed off. Her grown adult fucking son wanted to come on a cruise with his girlfriend that then turned into his wife. How dare they share a room? How dare? to the point that she called the cruise line and tried to get our booking canceled. Mind you, this cruise was also my wedding a week before. And a lot of people can say, well, you're still bitter about that 8 years later. Yeah, I'm fucking bitter about it because she also went back to Utah and spread high school girly fucking rumors about me and my husband and our choices about our wedding. To the point that other members of the family held grudges against me, which is a whole different problem, for 8 years. And still, they didn't really address it with me. They addressed it with my mother. Like she had any control over me now or at 22. By the time I was 22, I had graduated from college, was living on my own, working for myself as a grown-ass fucking adult. And yet this family that supposedly is supposed to be my support system is out here running around like high schoolers, gossiping and calling us drunks. On top of that, some members of this family actively try to get me or get other members not to interact with me and my husband, which is unbelievably ridiculous. That's why I'm no contact or minimal contact. Because the mean girl, bitchy culture that the LDS church has created in my family and Utah culture has created in my family is unbelievably toxic. They want you to show up to every goddamn event, and when you don't, it's a whole big issue. And my mom's a hypocrite in this story as well, because she's okay with me not showing up to anything, but if some of my cousins decide not to show up to something, it's a whole big let's gossip about them trying to text me about it. And I've told her multiple times at this point, like, I have nothing to say, because I don't show up to a lot of things either. They don't plan things effectively, so I can't show up to weddings and things like that because I get a month's notice. I start planning my vacations for the year in January. I can't just randomly decide on a Wednesday to fly out to Utah because someone's getting married. On top of that, because the LDS church is fucking insane, most of these have been Mormon weddings that I can't really even participate in. Why would I? If I'm going to constantly be at events and feel left out because I'm not a part of a cult, why would I go? And that's the kind of culture that's been created in my family in the last, I want to say the last 10 years, but it's been since I was a teenager. The first time my aunt lied about me and spread a rumor about me to the whole rest of the family, I was 12. My mom's little sister, not her older sister, but the older sister slut-shamed me at my own wedding reception. Body shamed me the minute I got breasts. Her younger sister has tried to tell my husband to go off his meds and called us drunks and convinced her kids that we're also drunks. I'm done with that kind of behavior. My husband deserves the fucking world, and yet these people and would go out of his way for people that he cares about in unimaginable, unbelievable ways. And at one point he did care about them, and yet the return favor was them calling us drunks and addicts and a whole bunch of things that we aren't. And it's hard for me, who did grow up in a lot of my traditions are built in this family, are built by my grandmother, realistically, because she's the only one who hasn't been mentioned in this, and that is strategic. She has no game to play in this. None whatsoever. She is forever welcoming. But the children that are hers, aka my aunts and uncles, are petty high schoolers, and they created an even worse version of themselves as grandkids. They never grew up. And yeah, some may say, well, you're here ranting on the internet about it. That's because I've never been able to tell my side of the story. I just have had to accept that, people call me a drunk and move on with my life. I've just had to take it on the face when they slut shame me to my face. Despite the fact that, I had 3 boyfriends my entire life and then married the 4th. All of which were like multi-year long relationships. I got slut shamed because I lived with my husband before I married him. I have had a bigger chest most of my life, and my mom body shamed me every day. The commentary surrounding my chest made me not want to have them anymore. And as an adult now, I just feel it inappropriate. The way they would comment on my chest size when I was a teenager and like going through puberty and everything else. Why? Why is that necessary? Especially when most of my cousins are men. Like, why is that necessary to comment on why? I don't love being no contact with my mom's side of the family. I don't, maybe it's just, time heals all wounds. I have been no contact with my dad's side for at least 8 years, and my mom's side is fresher and newer. But I still struggle with it. And I know a lot of people who have had to deal with a no and minimal contact where they have to put massive boundaries in place to protect themselves. They struggle with it too. They would like to just be included and be a part of the family without feeling like they were being stabbed in the back every goddamn day. I would love that. But, and I've told several of my cousins this, I, in a way, was faced with choosing my husband versus choosing my family. And I had to really sit down and think about it. Is he right? And the end result was he was. Every spouse my mom's side of the family has had that didn't last now gets shit talked at every family event. I don't like the woman, but my family has been shit talking the fact that, my aunt's going on her third marriage for months now. She delusionally placed her wedding over my stepdad's retirement trip. She also delusionally planned a wedding at a place that costs like 10 grand a person. In this economy? Are you and is getting mad at anybody who isn't going, by the way. Are you fucking kidding me? And I am going nice on the LDS church right now because there are a lot of things that I could say. They've brainwashed my cousin who used to have the biggest personality on the planet and thought for himself and knew how to challenge people, and now he's just this drone of a human being that only wants to talk about how happy God makes him. My mom's older sister basically ruined her oldest son for several reasons. One, adopting my cousin. Great thing, angel people for offering to do it, but did not think about her currently existing kids at all in that process. Her oldest son is a fuck up to no end because of that decision, in my opinion. When you are forced to, your cousin becomes your sister and you're 3 months apart, so you're basically raised as twins, and now you literally basically are, same school, same graduation date, same everything, pretty much. It fucks you up. But on top of that, he only went on his mission because he felt that if he didn't, he'd lose his family. And then when he came home early, he also got the good old, you're disowned for a little bit treatment. As did my cousin, but she had the first great-grandkid and everything else. So, she can do no wrong. That's how everyone treats her and her mother. They can do no wrong. Even though they are the biggest assholes on the planet. Types that show up at your house with 24 hours notice kind of people. And that's a multiple state trip, 24-hour notice. Not just a, I live down the road, let me show up kind of notice. Wants your vehicle and to stay at your home with 24 hours notice as well. Those are the types of people that are in my family. And at a certain point, you have to look in and say, do I want to continue to be an enabler to these behaviors? And the answer is no. I do not want to continue to be an enabler to the behaviors that the Mormon church already enables. I will gladly lose my family to go find people that actually give a shit. To go find people that aren't so wrapped up in a cult that I'm not allowed to be me without being in a popularity hierarchy in my own family. That I'm not asked to wear makeup when I don't want to and wear dresses and skirts when I hate them, or hide my tattoos because why? There is respecting other people's religions, and then there's enabling cult behavior. And I'm not enabling cult behavior anymore. I'm not enabling people who do make poor decisions with their life. I will keep the secrets. I won't explode people's marriages and worlds like they could have mine, but I'm also not enabling it anymore. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not choosing to turn the other cheek or be the bigger person. That is why I'm no contact. I'm allowed to tell my story. My story, my podcast, my marriage, and my experience. I'm allowed to tell that story. And they can get mad at me all they want if they discover this episode, which none of them ever supported me anyway, on any of my social media. They probably laughed at my posts and stuff behind my back. But honestly, if any of you are watching this, also, that's what I gotta say to you. And I don't care if that blows up the family. I really don't. Because I'm tired of enabling the church. I'm tired of enabling people who don't give a shit about me. And I'm tired of being in a group that is so unbelievably cliquey, I fit in more in high school. And I'm a fucking weird ass human being. So fitting in high school more than you fit in your own family? Like, let's be real here. I'm a fucking weirdo and I love it now, but back then I definitely didn't. Back then it made me feel like I was doing something wrong. I'm realizing the reason I feel like I need to rediscover myself in my 30s is because I felt like I've been doing something wrong my entire life because my family is so based in fucking gender norm nonsense that I don't subscribe to, that I felt like I had to be something I'm not to fit in my own fucking family. I literally purposely didn't bring makeup on a trip that I went on with my family so that I didn't have to wear it. Why pack it if you're never gonna wear it? And I got forced to use somebody else's because of it. Because I didn't bring any. I got lectured for not bringing any and then forced to use somebody else's. Which, ew. Especially if you don't have, like, brush it. That is an eye infection waiting to happen. If you know anything. Like, I am not a makeup guru in any way, shape, or form. Everything I know about makeup is for cosplay, so it's over dramatic and crazy all the time. And I also just like playing with, colors and things like that, even when I'm not doing it in cosplay, because it's fun to try new techniques to go out and about with, if I choose to wear it, which is rare. I want people who think it's a trend to really sit with why you think it's a trend. Because if you've watched my facial expressions, if you've watched my anger slowly boil across this episode, you know as an only child especially, who my cousins were my only lifeline when it comes to family and connection, the idea that I don't talk to really any of. I thought my cousins would be, we would all be in each other's weddings. That's how tight we were growing up. And ironically, of the ones that have had actual weddings thus far, I wasn't in any of them. I wasn't even asked. I was asked to work their weddings. That's what I was asked. I was asked to be a photographer for their weddings for free. That's the kind of disconnect that has happened. I'm not saying they had to ask me. I'm saying we had a completely different relationship growing up, and then I became an adult and I became, a person who stood on my own two damn feet and could stand up for myself, and that was when my family started to fall apart. When I decided to challenge the status quo and be different, I no longer received that unconditional love, in theory, that you're supposed to have as a part of family. And my husband, I don't know, ever has received it. I don't know that he's ever been well. Pretty sure they've always just thought he was this insane, drunken, I don't know, which is not who he is. Ironically, I wouldn't do it for myself, but I absolutely did it for him. I got I got better. A lot of people talk about how with like EDs and things like that, sometimes you have to have motivation to keep surviving for something else, right? A lot of people have talked about how pets have saved them from unaliving themselves and things like that. I got out of the toxic cycle, and I am breaking generational cycles in the way that I think about things, the way that I go about handling situations. For the better, I don't know. I don't have kids, so I'm not breaking up another generation. But I am, or bringing up another generation. I am breaking it with me, though. One way or another, it ends with me. At least on this side. I find it very odd and very kind of infuriating when people say that it's a trend. And it triggers me. I don't like using the word trigger there either, but like it definitely irks me when people say it's a trend, because I literally last year reevaluating my life, trying to decide how I want to live now that I'm exiting my 20s and things like that. There were so many nights where I wanted to just throw something at the wall, thinking about all of the things that have been done to me as a kid, done to other kids in my family, because on top of that, there is some real concerning legal issues that my family hid and covered up, of the variety where people should be in jail but never were and shouldn't be around minors and are. There's a lot of things that you look back on when you become an adult and you're like, oh shit, that's not okay. That you may or may not have realized at the time were or were not okay. It still fucking hurts. To decide, specifically with my mom's side of the family, who I was so deeply enmeshed with, to decide to go, to have people blocked. I have both of my mom's sisters, two of my cousins and their spouses, all blocked on social media and on my phone. They no longer get an access line to me. And I did that partially for my own, like, mental space, because I didn't want to see their messages in group chats because they would frustrate me, or see them on my feeds because they were just so unbelievably stupid sometimes that it would rile me up for no reason. It still irks me that people think it's a trend though. Because if I could choose something different, I would. I would choose for my family not to be a part of a cult. I would choose for my family to have done the right thing and put people in jail when they belonged there. I would have chose for my family to not enable people to do things that should be jail-worthy. I've been angry at the fact that I was too young at the time to do anything about it. And obviously, you know, statute of limitations and things like that. I've been angry for other members of my family that don't even know I've been angry for them. Because I'm not even sure in some cases that some of these kids even know what happened to them, and that the family is at fault. There are just, no contact is not easy. Limited contact is not easy. And I say that as someone who has literally always lived in a different state from a majority of my family. It's still not easy. I'm at a point now where, like, I don't even want people to talk to me about them. Like, I don't want to know that a majority of my cousins and their spouses are pregnant right now. I don't want to know that. I just don't. Like, I don't care, for one, because yay, more fucked up kids, because they're not gonna be, one already is not a good parent and has a spouse who is questionable at best. I worry for those kids. I worry that something's gonna happen. And a lot of people can make the argument, like, stay in contact to protect the kids. Not my job. Not my job. I have been the one that protected people. Protecting those kids to me would make the rest of my family angry anyway. Protecting those kids would be the minute there was a reason to call the cops, I would. The minute I had proof of a reason to call the cops. Because I'm pretty sure there already is reasons in some cases. Well, I know for a fact that there are reasons in other cases. But I worry. I worry that most of these kids are brought up in the religious cult even more. The spouses are in some ways worse than some of my cousins even were. A lot of them converted specifically for their spouses or got deeper in for their spouses, and that makes my dynamic with them even worse, especially if their spouse is deeper in the weeds than they were. I lived a different life than all of them, and that was not acceptable. And they lived a different life than me, and it was acceptable up until the point that I started getting unnecessary backlash when arguably, and this isn't me tooting my own horn, this is just measuring success, I am the most successful of the ones that are talking shit about me. Because there's one other member of my family who is just as successful, if not more, I would argue more successful regardless of traditional standards than my husband and I. There's one other couple. One. And I'm just arguing from a traditional standard. Like, obviously success is measured by different things, but if we want to talk about, you know, traditional milestones, I didn't have my parents help me buy my house. I'm not divorced and remarried. I am not relying on the rest of the family to raise my kid. I graduated college. Yeah, sure, some of them have master's degrees, but so some of them dropped out. So I don't rely on my spouse to support myself. I could completely support myself without him if I needed to. Whereas some of my cousins I don't think could. I think they would be dependent on some form of support from either the family or alimony. And I don't typically judge those things. I'm just saying, if you're gonna judge me, don't throw stones at glass houses. Because I can throw right back. Like, I wanted to talk about this because so many people are arguing that, like, as we start to shift more to that right-wing agenda and more mindset starts shifting away from helping the community, I'm not the right-wing Christian nationalist agenda, because I'm not talking politics. I'm literally talking, you know, arguably illegal things in the form of not separating church and state. Those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. As we start shifting towards that mentality of traditional gender roles and anti-LGBTQ and things like that, I worry that the divide is never going to get better. Because I'm open. If changes are made, I'm open to contact with some family members again. Others, it's a done deal. But some that I have blocked currently, there is an open arm, but not with their spouses involved in some cases, and not with the church involved in others, or both. I don't trust a lot of the spouses, just like I'm sure they don't trust mine, but that's why. we can't be in a family dynamic anymore. I can't trust them. I couldn't trust if I fostered and wanted to bring a foster to family events. I couldn't trust it. For several reasons, I couldn't trust it. But this is the slightly filtered version. I think I'm going to record an unfiltered version for family members that ask. But why am I no contact? At the end of the day, it's the LDS church controlling my family and it being a cult and me not wanting to respect a cult anymore, me not wanting to provide enabling to a behavior I don't agree with anymore, but also the hierarchy and the lack of trust, the need to conform to a religion I've never been a part of's rules, but that goes back to LDS church, and the lack of trust. I can't trust them. I can't trust them to not shit talk me. I can't trust them to not shit talk my husband for sure. I can't trust them to come to me and address things like adults if they have issues. I can't trust them to be respectful if they visit my home or my hometown even. I can't trust them to be decent human beings. And I do not have the time in my life currently to deal with people who can't be decent human beings. And that's that. So that is all for today's Chaos and Fuckery episode. It was more of a rant and a little insight into me and why I am the way I am and why I think the way I do and why I am so combative sometimes. It's because I have been fighting for my life since I was a young kid, being extremely different, being the feeder kid, being the kid that danced, being the kid that didn't have to live by the modesty rules of the LDS church always made me different. Being the one that lived out of the state of Utah and had life experiences that were extremely different from the rest of my cousins. I was always the oddball out. I just didn't think that would matter, but it very much so does now that I'm an adult. And that caused the Great Divide, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. I'm trying to see it as a fortunate thing because things have improved with me and my husband since I really was capable of seeing everything. I still struggle with it. It's not his family, but I know he struggles similarly with his own family and some of the things he's had to do in the name of protecting himself. But I do find it offensive when people are saying, oh, it's a trend. No contact is a trend. No, it's not. It's fucking hard, but it's more difficult and a lot harder to constantly be in the cycle of bullshit. It's not worth it. So if you are considering no contact, know that you're not alone. Know that it's not some trend that you're seeing on the internet. Know that there is good on the other side, even if it doesn't feel like there will be. But also know that it's ultimately your decision and yours alone. No one can force it, and no one can enforce it once you decide, but you. And if you're non-confrontational like me, it's not easy. It is really not. I know I seem combative and confrontational on the internet, but that's because I'm speaking openly and frankly, just me, myself, and I. I'm not having that conversation with someone else where I've had it ingrained in me that it's rude to tell people to fuck off, that it's disrespectful to address a situation with somebody because there's never a right time and place. But yeah, that was kind of my 2 cents and a little bit about my story about why I'm no contact and to kind of hopefully explain why someone might go no contact with their family. If it becomes more difficult on a day-to-day to think about, and I've already rambled on for too long, but one of my aha moments in my no contact, limited contact situation with my family was realizing if I feel that I need to be inebriated to be around my family, which I often did, I felt like I either needed to be high off my ass or drunk off my ass to interact with them. I would be sneaking flasks into dry Mormon weddings, and I would be, talking about or theorizing about finding edibles so I can get high off my ass to go to these events. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be interacting with these people anymore. If I feel the need to do that, just to feel comfortable, just to feel like I belong there, I shouldn't be there. And that was my big realization of how many events did I feel like I needed to go get fucked up beforehand or during. And it was socially acceptable to say so in my circles because the circle around me were also doing the same thing. And the reality is we all should just go no contact, but I can't tell other people to do that. I can tell myself to do that, but I can't tell my mom, like, hey, your family's a bunch of shitheads. She won't believe it. She's starting to see the light, but she's not there yet. And my cousin, who has kids to worry about, their interaction with the rest of the family is important too. It's not just about her anymore. For me, it is just about me, and I got to cut ties and say fuck it. And I don't regret it. So, to those who say, oh, like, you'll regret going no contact, and I don't regret it. I've been no contact. I mean, with my dad's family, like I said, I've been no contact for about 8 years now. And with my mom's, it's been about 6, 7-ish internet. Anyways, it has been about 6 or 7 months since I started limiting and started blocking and started just saying, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm not interacting with this. I'm not enabling this. I'm not giving you what you want and bitching about this other person. I just kind of cut the line and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And my mom, I think, is the one that's struggling to understand it the most. And one other family member who I still talk to, I might not for long, to be honest, because they haven't left the church and they're getting worse and worse by the day. But they want to understand, but also wants to make excuses for people who've done really awful things in the past. And those are the types of things that I won't put up with. I won't put up with making excuses for people who've done illegal things and they just got away with it. I'm not doing that. And I don't mean, the kind of illegal we all do. I mean truly heinous illegal things that the family covered up. That's what I mean. My one line is, don't fuck with kids. I really don't care about adult social policies, but my one line is, don't fuck with kids. And I'll leave it there. But that is all for this week in Chaos and Fuckery Land. And I hope y'all don't have as much fuckery in your family, but you do have lots of chaos, because chaos is fun and fuckery is not. But for now, I will see you on Thursday with whatever the fuck I want to talk about.